Oh, praise the Lord, everybody. We are grateful to being here today, and we are glad to have with us Steve and Daniela again. How are you all doing today? Good, good, good. Well, we want to give everybody time to come in and be with us. Have you guys been having a wonderful time? You look good. Look like you've been enjoying yourself. I heard y'all had a little trip somewhere.
Yes, sir. We took a trip to the Keys.
To the Keys? How'd that turn out?
It was pleasurable. His father is owner of a restaurant called Island Grill, and I had a private reservation for me.
Island Grill. Is that on the Keys?
Yes, sir. It's in Islamorada.
Okay. Steve, tell me about that.
Oh, it was a wonderful experience. The food was awesome. We tried to get on the boat, but it was too late in the day. But we enjoyed ourselves. We really did enjoy ourselves.
That was wonderful. And how was the weather down there? I know it was hot.
Yeah, it was really hot.
92 degrees.
92 degrees. Well, that was hot. Well, I'm glad you guys enjoyed yourself. And how long have you all been back together? It's been how many months? How long?
It'll be
Since February?
4 months.
4 months. So, and we are working on this relationship, bringing it back together. I mean, I like this. I like this. And someone asked the other week about why would you come on and be transparent and tell all of your business and different things like that. And I don't know if you've told all of your business, but I think it was very good that you were able to do that, because there are people who are going through the same problems and no one to relate to. The Bible is transparent. It is transparent about Adam and Eve being naked in the garden. It's transparent about David going on the top of a house looking at a woman. It's transparent about Solomon being addicted to sex and women and pornography. It's transparent about the church in 1 Corinthians chapter 7 who had a man who was sleeping with his father's wife. So the Bible is very transparent, and I think that it's that transparency that, in fact, allows others to be able to express themselves so that they can get help. Now, let me tell you this for those who have a problem with your transparency. Since you all have spoken, I have a gentleman who is in Colorado who really specializes in helping people who have dealt with pornography. And I have given a few young people a contact who reached out to me from what you spoke, and they've connected with him where he's able to actually help them with some of the issues that he's dealing with. And let me say this so that everybody can really, really get a clarity on it. Pornography and all of these things is common in the church. It's just not expressed a lot in the church, but it is common. 1 Corinthians chapter 7, I think is tells that sometimes not 7, 1 Corinthians chapter 5, it talks about this conversation in 1 Corinthians chapter 5. It says, "It is reported commonly that there is fornication among you, and such fornication is not named among the Gentiles, that one should have his father's wife." So Paul was being very upfront in 1 Corinthians chapter 15 that the problem with fornication in the church was worse than it was in the world. And we don't come to the conclusion that fornication and sexual issues are stronger in the church problem than they are in the world. 1 Corinthians chapter 7 says, now concerning the things you wrote unto me, it's good for a man not to touch a woman, nevertheless to avoid fornication. So the whole conversation in 1 Corinthians chapter 7 was about sex and about people who are having those battles with sex. In fact, Paul mentions that even though you're married, you can still be tempted if you're not, if this thing is not dealt with properly. So I want to talk a little bit today, Steve and Daniella, about communicating your weaknesses, or communicating your secrets, or communicating your battles, or communicating your issues with each other. And because you all seem to, in these 4 months, have pulled together a strategy of how to properly communicate with each other about controversy, about very, very tensionous subjects. What has led you all to be able to be transparent and communicate these issues with each other?
We pretty much came up with a little motto: acknowledge, accept, move on. We can't really communicate or be honest with each other if we're not willing to acknowledge where we are, what we're struggling with, and what our problems are. A lot of times we have problems, but we create more problems instead of creating more solutions. So in everything, and what's powerful is we actually had an argument this morning. And even though it was very childish, but it gave us the principle to realize that, hey, obviously we have a problem, so let's try to negotiate something that keeps a flow or that helps everybody work together instead of being divided because we have a problem.
Steve?
Yeah, communication is a key. And first, I had issues with communicating. I didn't want to talk about what was going on. But once you communicate and you tell the person or your spouse what's going on, then they can help you with the situation.
Do you think men have a problem with communication in general?
Yeah, they do. Because I used to have it. I used to feel embarrassed or just didn't want help from a woman or a man or telling me what to do. But if you communicate, then you could probably learn something from them or take their techniques and use it day by day. So
what do you think is the number one thing that keeps us from communicating with others? And really, because you're right, we have a tendency of not talking a lot as men.
just not, we don't want to, how can I say it, like, we don't want other men telling us what to do. That's basically what it is, because we feel like as men, we're men's. Ain't nobody can tell me what to do. But as I'm 29, and I take advice from an older man because he lived that life and he did it before. So therefore, I can use his techniques so I won't slip in my ways that I used to be.
And how did you all discover how to handle arguments without arguments becoming, because it's okay to be angry, and it's even okay to argue a point. And the way I look at an argument is like when you go to court, you have the plaintiff and you have the defendant, and then you have the evidence, you have the judgment. So since Scott and I, we used to have arguments, and we didn't know how to have an argument. But once we learned, an argument is you have your side of the way you look at something. And you're passionate about that, and you're presenting all the evidence to say that your side is right. You have all of your side of what you feel is right. You have all of the evidence to say that your side is right. And then we go to the scripture as a third party to make a judgment, whether I'm right or you're wrong. And whatever that scripture says, that's how we're going to deal with it, versus, and this is how we used to have our arguments just like a courthouse. I would shut up and be quiet and said, okay, you say whatever you're going to say. It's going to take as much time as you need to say whatever you're going to say. Of course, I was always the one that's interrupting. I thought you were going to let me say what I had to say. And when you said whatever you need to say, You say whatever you need to say, and then let's see what God says. And whatever God says, that's what we're going to agree on. That's the way that we're going to do it. What do you think about that format of Daniella solving and resolving an argument?
That's powerful spiritually, but because I'm pretty much trying to win him over through conversation, I try to lay the word down, even though the word comes in part and it is an essential part. But because he's not fully equipped in the word, I just pretty much, my daily prayer is, Lord, let me judge righteously. Don't let my judgment be based on emotions. So when we do get in these altercations, when we do get into these arguments, okay, let's justify what's feelings and tell me how you feel about this. So that way, as you know, it's like adding pieces to a puzzle. We both don't have the full picture. He got puzzle pieces that he has, and then I have puzzle pieces that I have. So together we put, oh, well, I feel like you could do this or you could do that. Okay, for example, this morning the argument was, hey, well, I take the kids to school Monday through Friday. You're off on Wednesday. On Wednesday mornings, I think I should get a break since you're off, and then you could take the kids to school in the morning just for this one day out of the week. He was really tired, and he gets off in the wee hours in the morning, in which I have to be understanding towards that because he's worked all night, he's tired. But then again, it's like, I work overnight too, even though I get more rest than you do. But all I'm asking you is for one day out of the week. And he was so tired that he got upset that the fact that it was his day and he didn't want to do it. So he was like, you know what? I'm not even going to argue with you. I'm just going to get up and do it. But then again, I went in prayer because with me, I was like, well, you agreed to this day, now just because you're tired, you feel like you could just opt out. Like it could have been more fuel added to the fire. So after I got out of prayer, I came to him, I said, hey, listen, yes, we agreed upon this day. Do we need to renegotiate? It's just pretty much about like making a deal and a sale. Like, okay, well, if this don't work for you, what can you put down so you could get this? So that's just my mindset. Like if something isn't working, let's find another way to make it work.
And women have to be careful in their approach because biblically, she is not to use the word on her husband, but she's to use her behavior. And a lot of women, rather than using behavior, they try to use scripture. And see, First Peter says, likewise, ye wives, be in subjection to your own husband, that if any obey not the word, they may be won by the conversation of the wife, which is a perfect example. You said when you got out of prayer, you say, you know what, maybe I can do this differently. Maybe I should, and that's the reflection of a praying woman. What you gonna say something, Steve?
Yeah, if she would have came at me like how she used to, oh, this is what you said you was gonna do. Oh, I was gonna snap. But since she came at me calm and she asked to renegotiate, I just thought, and I was just like, okay, maybe we can. She came at me calm and collect, so maybe we can talk about it and resolve the issue.
And sometimes the problem is that even though women can get that influence from their husband, sometimes the problem is that they're so dominating, they're so overbearing that the man automatically feels intimidated, and he's not intimidated, but he feels violated because he feels like his manhood is challenged by the way that she approaches it. True. And she could win. The Bible says that it says further, likewise, you wives, be subject to your own. If anybody obey not the word, they may be won by the conversation of the wife. So it was your conversation and the way you've conversed with him that allowed him to respond differently. The Bible says a soft answer turns away wrath, but grievous words stir up anger. So your conversation depends upon whether there's going to be wrath or whether it's going to be calm. So women a lot of times don't realize that you are the one that keeps that balance, keep it from going into this argumentative stage, and they think this is a sign of weakness to submit. But if God gives us, he knows what a man needs. A man needs to feel that authority. He needs to feel like he's in charge. But he doesn't have to get that by being dominated. you give him that sense of being in charge by submitting. So what do you see was the difference between your previous approach and the approach that you have now that you're reconciling?
Quick apologies. Just, I understand that there's a cause and effect. If it's causing me to act out of order, then I can't get mad at the effect that he's gonna act out of order too. If I come to him soft, and even if his response is still out of order, at some point in time, he's gonna replay the situation in his mind, and I'm pretty sure he is, and he's gonna be like, okay, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have come at you like that. Even while I, like earlier today, we were in the kitchen cooking, and I was like, oh, can you cut that up? And I realized that the way that I asked was like, yeah, hurry up and do it. And I was like, please. I said, I heard myself and it didn't sound right. And he was like, yeah, because who you think you talking to? And I had to quickly come, like, just being mindful of my approach. And because when I do it before and after, I had no filter. Like, I had no humbleness in me. It was just like, okay, you done made me mad, now I'm finna go off. And it never fixed anything. It was just fighting fire with fire, and there was no salt, there was no water, nothing. It was just out of control.
But being a young wife, a lot of people think that's like, even when you're doing marriage vows and all of that, people over here in the Western world think that's like that's like strange, or you shouldn't have that attitude. That's outside of this culture today, to be submitted, or to be very careful of how you approach your husband, very careful how you speak to your husband and say, hey, you say, oh, maybe I should say that differently. How much is that bear in some of the relationship issues that people are having today?
They look at it because it's husband and wife, but in reality, if you have the same, I won't say submission that you will have towards your husband, but the techniques that you will develop in a marriage, those are the same techniques you need in a friendship or a relationship with other people, because these things are still essential. If you were to get in a fight with your best friend today, clearly, two different perspectives. Y'all need to come to a solution. They look at it because it's husband and wife, but like this goes beyond husband and wife. It's just pretty much establishing a good foundation for a relationship with anybody you come in contact with.
And you said something that's very powerful, because anywhere you go, you're going to have somebody that's superior and somebody that's submitting, right, in driving. The police officer is superior, you're submitting. In a restaurant, if you're working somewhere, you have a boss, you have an employee, you have employee, you have employer, or you have pastor, you have member, you have government, you have citizens. You have all these levels of submission, and yet people feel that when you get to the house, you're not supposed to have any submission in it. Now, how do men, and how do you think, Steve, men can abuse that authority? Is it possible for men to abuse it?
Yeah, they abuse it all the time. I used to abuse it. I used to tell her, oh, we married, you gonna do what I gotta say, or do what I say do. But then again, I had to think about it, like, just cause we were married, I don't gotta abuse it. Like, we was friends before that, and she was my best friend, so therefore, I'm going back to it, as in keeping that mutual relationship, as we started as friends, and then we was best friends, then we got married. I don't have to abuse it, because she's gonna do it anyways. If you over abuse it, then it's gonna have a cause. Then she gonna start talking back, not do it, or she gonna get slick with you.
And so it's not like my relationship is gonna be like this master servant mentality. It's the idea of he's an authority, I'm submitting, but it's not the idea you're like, shut up, do what I'm saying. It's just you automatically, it's a relationship that says, I recognize that this is my authority and I'm submitting that authority versus having to force that. And I think a lot of men don't understand that it does not have to be forced if you apply it right.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be it doesn't have to be forced if she already knows that you're the husband. So you don't have to tell her what to do because she already know what to do. So I don't abuse and I don't force anything because she already know how to treat me like a husband.
And what about those times that, that maybe, you look at this modern society now, and their concept is, so we may have some problem, we have some conflict, and we may not resolve an issue today. How do we still go on and function as a husband and wife and those issues are not resolved? So say, for instance, that you didn't solve that argument this morning, and there was still a view, and you still had a view, and you still might have had some tensions there. How do you still function? You still cook, you still clean, you still communicate. Because some people, when you have an issue, an argument, they just like totally shut down, stop speaking, no longer. How do you get to the level where you can still have those things that exist, but you still function, you still speak, you still cook, you still clean, and you don't let your emotions take control of the relationship?
You got to get out your feelings. It's not about you. There's more than one person in the household that needs to be catered to, that needs nurturing, that needs comfort. Even outside of us, we still have to play that part to our children. And being tensed up with one another, eventually you're going to break because at some point in time, you're going to have to put your wall down because you have other people to minister to. A woman naturally submits, whether her husband is doing wrong or if he's doing right. That's just who we were built up to be. And naturally, if you're having, issues with a woman not submitting, or you feel like you have to be, high and mighty, there's some insecurity in yourself. If a woman is not submitting, there's a part of insecurity in herself. And it still reflects as a father and daughter relationship. Your father could beat you all day long, but at the end of the day, you're going to run to your father. Now, he isn't my father, but at the end of the day, he pays the bills. At the end of the day, he brings in the money. At the end of the day, he still needs to be taken care of. And because we came from where we came from, we try our best to take care of these issues because we don't want to give the enemy no room. And that's how a lot of things came into play as far as being chaotic, because we give too much room to the enemy. Yeah, we have a problem. I mean, it's funny how we'll have a problem with our boss on the job and we'll quickly be willing to solve that or quickly be willing to get things done because we know that if that's going to be affected, then my pay is going to be affected. Well, if we're affected and we're intensified amongst each other, then our household is going to be affected. And we want everything to be done in decency and order. And if things are out of order, it's time to get the house back intact because there's no way it's going to run.
And they can have this conflict with a boss and still work. Yeah. Have this conflict. Because a lot of time what happens is women and men both, they have a problem with each other on something that they don't agree with. And she goes in one room, he goes in another room. She doesn't cook that day, she doesn't speak that way. But you can still have a disagreement and still function as husband and wife until that disagreement is resolved. So even if we have not resolved the agreement, I still have my view, you still have your view. We've had an argument about it, and we've come to the conclusion that, we don't see eye to eye on this again. It's too heated for us to discuss it. Let's back away and do that, hug, I still love you, and I still feel the way I feel. I'm going to still cook, I'm going to still clean. We're going to still have our sexual relationship. We're not going to let our emotions stand in the way. But it's a lot of time, people don't know how to handle arguments and disagreements effectively and efficiently. And so what happens is, when they disagree, that means we stay in two different rooms. When they disagree, that means, so we can still have a disagreement and have not resolved that disagreement, but we are mature enough to continue to do our daily functions. And that's where I think one of the big problems coming in is that and that's a communication issue. You just want to say something, Steve?
Yeah, it's a communication issue because what I used to do, if we argue or we get mad at each other, I'll linger the whole day with the same argument, and then I'll come home and don't even lay in the bed. I'll probably sleep on the couch. Yeah. So I let it linger through the whole day, where I could have just resolved it and just been like, okay, I love you. Kids, we still have our argument or disagreement, and we still can lay in the bed with each other. Eventually, us men will give in.
Because you like that touch.
We'll give in. Because
And if it's right and you're wrong, you should.
Yeah.
If there's something right and it's wrong and you honestly see that you're wrong, you should. Now, if I don't see I'm wrong, I'm going to stand my ground. But if I see that I'm wrong, I've got to be willing to say, you know what, I was wrong about this one. And God, the nature of man is when he's in conflict, is to run. When God went to Adam and asked Adam, God is saying, Adam, I don't want you to think because you're out in sin and because you're wrong that I don't want to have anything to do with you. Adam, where are you? And he called Adam back to him from hiding. So we tend to like separate and back up because we have an issue. And I think you guys are doing the reverse because that's what actually pulled you apart. When you had a disagreement, when you went your way and you went your way rather than coming together and say, let's solve the disagreement. But when you said a big word, when emotions, and emotions are just what they are, they're called emotions. Emotions mean movement. So they're emotions. That means they're always up and down. You know, there are mornings that you may wake up and you feel a certain way about each other based upon what is happening, but don't let your emotions get in your mind. When your emotions get in your mind, they start affecting your behavior. That's what actually breaks up relationships because then we start saying stuff that we only mean at that moment, especially women, because women are emotional. And you start saying stuff that you only mean at that moment, but once you say those things that you only mean at that moment, when the man takes it, he takes that, and now he's wearing that in his heart all day because you said it. See, we're different. When you say something to us, we consider it and hold it and linger it, but women sometimes you can get upset today and say something that you really don't mean. But once it's out there, a man grabs a hold of it, that becomes a part of his spirit. Now it's hard to let it go. So you gotta really consider that, am I speaking out of my emotions? Or a woman may get up and they get upset and she all of a sudden gets up and go to take her stuff and move back with her mama. Only because at that point she felt a certain way. And so we don't think logically, we don't think mentally, and then now once we've made that decision that we made over emotions, then we regret it when we had our mama. So man, I should have never went over there and moved with my mama because I don't like staying over there anyway. Why I did
It's
that?
facts.
And that creates an unstable person.
Yes.
The instability that women have, most of it is due to the fact that they move in the emotions. So I get mad, they come to a house and a leak is in the house. I'm gonna go get me another house. I don't like the house because of the leak. Not really thinking I could fix the leak and it could be done. But versus she does look at the leak, she gets into an emotional state and move on that emotion. That's why the enemy, he knew that he couldn't get Eve on anything. He played it on the emotions.
Yep.
He said, God is lying to you. And Eve fed into that. He's not thinking, hey, you're going to get kicked out, you're going to die. Not even thinking, say, hey, you know, this is information that I need to think and reconsider. I'm not even thinking, man, I got all this other fruit over here. Why do I test it by eating this one fruit?
Provoking one another.
He's got that emotional, and women have. That's why they love women to come to the mall because they can talk to them. Ooh, that would look good on you. Ooh, you think so? Let me buy it. Ooh, them shoes look good on. Ooh, you think so? Let me buy it. So everything is about emotions. So you have to be careful now to think and say, I'm the emotional one. Let me think back and let me think sensibly and not emotionally. So that helps keep the relationship in balance. And I think that's a major thing. And these are the things that causes communication. Tone. When you're emotional, your tones get a certain way. And it's sometimes not what you're saying. Even with men, it's not, sometimes it's the way we say it and how we say it. So when communicating, we've got to be sensitive of how each other perceive that. Now, for me, I don't like to be yelled at as a man. And the bad thing about it, that men don't like to be yelled at as men, but sometimes they get loud. And that becomes a problem with women because you're saying, hey, I don't like to be yelled at either. You know, so and you have to understand sometimes that is a male's nature, and the woman, as I said, that's a part of submission, is being able to understand that there may be some things that he can express in a certain way that I can't. This is the same thing on the job. If you got a boss, that boss can come to you and say, hey, Daniela, I need you to have this done by 3 o'clock. But you can't go to the boss and say, hey, I need you to have my check by 4 o'clock. You know, you may get fired. So it's that. What do you think about that?
It's powerful because in arguments also we've learned not to provoke one another, which is a big thing. Because, you know, when a husband comes at you any kind of way, and most times they could be wrong. And it seems really grievous at that point. So it's like, okay, well, you coming over here fussing at me and you already wrong. So my first instinct is hit the lowest blow to make you feel bad since you yelling at me. And it won't work, because now both of y'all going heated for heat, and you just both coming at each other and saying things that y'all don't really mean, or things that could be in the heart that you haven't spoke about or discussed, but it's just the wrong time to present all those things. And then what happens is you start wounding each other, and then somebody ends up bleeding internally. And if you're not careful, you'll have that person bleed out, and you can kill that person by doing that. So it's not fun to be cutting up each other like that in a sense of arguments. And another thing is, being tone sensitive is a big thing, because he was raised by both of his parents. And, you know, his father wouldn't say much, but he will always watch. And his mother would be the spokesperson for the father. But me, on the other hand, I was only raised by a mother. So a single mom, she yells all day. That's all she do, is yell, 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 because we already know she's not.
Pick that up.
Yes, and I do, like, even when I'm passionate about something, my tone be so high, and he be like, listen, why are you yelling at me? And
But
I'm
so
like,
you recognize that.
right. And I'm like, I'm not yelling in the sense that I'm yelling at you, but I'm just excited. Or if I am yelling, I'll be like, I'm sorry for raising my voice, but listen, I feel like you're not listening to me. And it's just like, I have to even learn through my children. Just because you raise your voice, that's not going to make them want to listen. If anything, it's going to make a person want to turn away. It's going to make a person want to rebel even the more. So how you approach somebody is really, really, really big.
I like what you're saying, because, you know, you can actually look and see just in Steve's demeanor and your demeanor that Steve is more or less kind of laid back, kind of easygoing, and, I mean, that's kind of how he is, unless you push him out. When you pull him out, then he can be that. But I think that you said something I think that is very, very powerful. And that is, you have to know sometimes you can carry that on. And I never equated it to that, but you're right. If you got a single parent mom who's always yelling, now she has a husband that's come from you have a father, and he's kind of like that quiet person. She now can bring that same yelling into the relationship, and that can become damaging. But it takes a woman like yourself to recognize, I have this problem. Let me give you something that I want you to see. It says in Proverbs 7:10, and behold, there met him a woman with a tire of a harlot and something hard. She is loud and stubborn. So one of the things that the Bible talks about a woman is that she shouldn't be loud. Women don't see that today. Now, that's not something that he said about the men, but he specifically said that women should not be loud. 1 Corinthians chapter 3, it says at 3:2, while they behold your conversation coupled with fear, whose adorning, let it not be the outward adorning of the platinum, the hair, the wearing of gold, or putting on apparel, but let it be the hidden man of the heart, in which is that is not corrupt, but even the ointments of a meek and quiet spirit. So a woman should have that quietness about her when it comes to approaching her husband, and I think that makes the conversation a lot better. So I'm grateful tonight, and I hope that you all have said something that could help somebody. This was very, very blessed and informative. Let me get a final word from you, Danielle, and then a final word from you, Steve.
I love this. I just pray that whoever's watching and whoever considers this a blessing, that you do be blessed. I'm not saying that it's easy, because it's not. And just because we carry it well doesn't mean that it's not heavy. But we choose, just like we fight for faith, we're fighting for love. And as long as we're exercising in that, exercising in love, I feel like, we'll be fit for whatever it is that, what we go through. And what's powerful right now is I'm sitting behind Sister Cowart during services, and I watch how she's covering Pastor in prayer. She's active while he's actively ministering, but there comes a point in time where she's just watching. And though she can testify to some of the things that he is speaking about, she really doesn't respond to everything. And then that is teaching me how to learn, is teaching me how to respond, and when I need to respond, but also how to be quiet sometimes, even though I can respond. So that's a powerful thing in itself.
Steve?
All I got to say is, communication is a key. And, I love it. I'm not fighting by myself. So if you got a wonderful wife, treat her right. Because, there's nothing out there for us anyways. There's nothing out there in the world for us. And if you're not fighting alone, because I'm not fighting alone, she's fighting with me. And that's powerful, because nobody's going to want to fight with you. You're going to be fighting by yourself. So like I said, just treat her right and do what's right.
Well, I love that. And then you guys brought me lunch today. So let's talk about lunch. What I have there, Daniela.
So Pastor has...
And Daniela can cook, and Steve can eat. So they are compatible. They are wonderful couple, because she can cook and he can eat. Did you help with Steve, or just watch?
I helped a little bit.
So your dad is a chef. You know how to cook?
Yeah, of course I know how to cook.
Okay.
I was raised in 2 households. I had to learn. I had no choice but to learn how to cook.
So what we got?
So Pastor has whipped grits with extra butter. He has steamed fish with tomato paste sauce. He has some okra, in Creole we call kalaloo. And he has some onions and bell peppers and red peppers. And he has a side of pickles, and he has some pomegranate seeds as a sweet fruit.
Okay, and I have to go.